Welcome to the chilling realm of AI horror stories. Subscribe now and hit that like button if you dare to explore the darkest corners of the digital world and beyond, where nightmares are just a prompt away. First story, a bad dream. What if your scariest dream wasn't just a nightmare, but a warning, and ignoring it could lead to a terrifying reality for those around you, while you are strangely spared? A bad dream. This story based on a true incident. Nava, Manav, and Karan lived in an army cantonment area many years ago and studied together in the army school there. At that time, they were all around 11 to 12 years old. Behind that cantonment area was a very small field, behind which stretched a vast forest. Children were strictly not allowed to go into that forest. Rumor had it that lions and wild animals roamed the forest. Some people even said that a witch lived in the forest. But one evening, without telling their parents, the three of them, under the guise of mischief, set off towards the forest. They knew about the lions and wild animals, but every child thinks they have superpowers. And in their own world, the three of them ventured into the forest. Slowly, the darkness of night began to fall, but they continued to move forward. Navia had always felt uneasy in the dark since childhood, and so she started talking about going back home. She was trying to convince her friends when they suddenly heard the roar of a lion. Everyone's hair stood on end. Frightened, Navia turned back and saw that there was no lion there, but an old woman was standing in front of them. Her face wasn't clearly visible in the dark, but a large scar was definitely visible on her cheek. She was wearing a black gown. Along with her black dress, the woman's eyes were extremely scary, and she was staring intently at the children. She told all the children plainly that this forest was not for them, and that only she and her pets lived there. She told the children to return home, and advised them never to come to this forest again. Standing in the dim moonlight, that old woman looked no less than a fearsome witch. The three of them were listening to the woman's words in fear, when suddenly, the cries of wild animals began to come from every corner of the forest. It seemed as if the old woman was controlling them all. Among the three, Karan and Manav both became very scared. In fact, Karan started crying out of fear. After this, the woman quieted them down and gave them a handful of candies, although all three knew that they shouldn't take anything from strangers. In that heavy silence, no one could refuse that scary old woman. The old woman gave candies to Karan and Manav, but Navia didn't get even one. Navia saw that the woman had a strange anger in her eyes for her. She was looking at everyone with her sharp gaze. Just then, the three of them started walking back towards their homes. They were passing by the woman when she grabbed Manav's hand. She looked into all three of their eyes and said, "Don't even think about sleeping in the darkness of the forest tonight." These words created a sense of terror within Navia. When Karan fearfully asked the old woman the reason for her saying this, the old woman gave a frightening smile and then said, "If you sleep tonight, all your scary dreams will come true." Saying this, she released Manav's hand, and the three of them ran back to their homes like crazy horses. While running, Navia could hear the sounds of animals running behind them. It seemed as if the woman's pets were chasing them. Navia just wanted to reach her home as soon as possible. The three of them quickly reached their homes and forgot about this incident, considering it a mistake. Since Navia had an exam the next day, she went to sleep in her bed, but the old woman's scary voice, her muddy hands, long nails, and cut cheek kept running through her mind. Just as the old woman had said, as soon as she fell asleep, Navia had a dream, her scariest dream. In the dream, it was raining heavily. Navia was sitting in a car, going away from her parents, as if she might never meet them again. Her mother was crying uncontrollably in a red saree, and her father was standing in a shirt and pants, tears welling up in his eyes too. As the car moved further away, when Navia wanted to turn back and look at her parents, someone else was standing behind them. The shocking thing was that the same old woman was standing there, with the same terrifying laugh on her face. She was also waving at her. While having this dream,
Nevia started thrashing violently on her bed. In the dream, the car's speed suddenly increased, and she looked forward again due to the darkness. She saw that her parents were also crying and driving in the front seat, and the same woman was sitting next to her, staring at her with her scary eyes. The car's speed suddenly became so fast that it went out of control and suddenly fell into a ditch. And just then, Navia's eyes opened. She dismissed it as a bad dream. Navia really made a big mistake by sleeping that day.
After the school exams, her father decided to send his daughter to her grandmother's house to move to Meerut. The next day, as Nevia was traveling in the car, she saw her same scary dream coming true. That day, her mother was wearing a red sari, and her father was wearing the same shirt and pants, and both were crying in the same way as in Nevia's dream. As Nevia was leaving, when she wanted to turn back and look, both her hands and feet went numb. Everything was happening just like in her dream. Just like in her dream, the same old woman they had met in the forest was standing right behind her parents, and she was smiling at Nevia in the same terrifying way. But this time, when Nevia's car picked up speed, it didn't go into any ditch, and no accident happened afterward. 10 days later, Navia learned from her parents that Manav's mother had died in an accident. Navia was too young then to understand all this, and with time, she also forgot about it. But a few years later, she returned to her city and met her old friends. That's when Manav told her that on the night Navia had that scary dream, he too had a bad dream. In his dream, Manav had seen his mother dying in a car accident, which came true 10 days later. But nothing like this happened with Karen, because Karen hadn't slept that night. Navia was perhaps starting to understand everything little by little. She remembered the old woman's words when she had forbidden them from sleeping that night. Navia's terrifying dream didn't come true because perhaps she hadn't eaten the candy given by that woman that day, but she became completely convinced that all this was done by that witch. After that day, that old woman started appearing in Navia's dreams again. Today, Navia is 20 years old, but whenever that woman looks at her in her dreams, something very bad is always narrowly avoided in Navia's life. Navia has never understood the magic of that old woman. Did you understand who that old woman was? Do let us know in the comments. Second story, Until Dawn. Game of Death. Trapped in a time loop within a haunted visitor center, 4 friends die gruesome deaths over and over again, each night at 6:45 p.m. Can they break the cycle and survive until dawn, or will they become another tragic legend of the valley? And that brings us to the end of tonight's chilling tale. Sweet dreams, or should we say, don't have them. If you enjoyed this descent into darkness, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to AI Horror Stories so you don't miss our next nightmare. Good night for now. 4 friends, Jake, MR, Leah, and Theo, had been hiking since morning on a secluded mountain trail in America. Evening was approaching, and they found the path confusing. That's when Jake spotted a boat and realized they had taken the wrong route because the boat had the name of a different valley, one that wasn't part of their hiking trail. Darkness was falling, and going back now wasn't safe. Jake remembered how the locals had mentioned a visitor center near a similar boat. He told everyone to follow him, and soon they saw the visitor center. They decided to leave as soon as morning came so they could safely return in daylight. Second story, Until Dawn. Game of Death. Trapped in a time loop within a haunted visitor center, 4 friends die gruesome deaths over and over again each night at 6:45 p.m. Can they break the cycle and survive until dawn, or will they become another tragic legend of the valley? 4 friends, Jake, MR, Leah, and Theo, had been hiking since morning on a secluded mountain trail in America. Evening was approaching, and they found the path confusing. That's when Jake spotted a boat and realized they had taken the wrong road because the boat had the name of a different valley, one that wasn't part of their hiking trail. Darkness was falling, and going back now wasn't safe. Jake remembered how the locals had mentioned a visitor center near a similar boat. He told everyone to follow him, and soon they saw the visitor center.
They decided to leave as soon as morning came so they could safely return in daylight. As they approached the visitor center building, the clouds suddenly turned black and it started raining. They quickly went straight inside the building. As soon as they entered, the rain outside became very heavy and the sounds of thunder in the sky grew louder. They locked the building door from the inside and placed their bags and other belongings near the door. Jake used some small papers and old furniture lying around to light the fireplace in the building, and they sat there to wait for the night to pass. It was about 6:45 p.m. at that time.
Emma and Leah felt a strange unease inside the visitor center. Just then, Jake chuckled and told them that when he spoke to a local man, the local had said that this visitor center was considered haunted. He said that anyone who came here never returned. Just a few months ago, a girl named Melanie had come there and never returned from that valley. Jake was making fun of the local superstitious talk when suddenly the windows and doors began to open on their own. A strong gust of wind caused all the light bulbs inside the building to burst. The fire in the fireplace also extinguished itself, and it started snowing heavily outside. The weather suddenly became very cold. Somehow, they closed the door again, relit the fireplace, and lit many candles to bring light back into the building. But then, Theo realized that Emma wasn't there. Everyone started searching for Emma inside and outside, but they couldn't find any trace of her. Theo was in the main hall when suddenly he heard someone running outside. He thought it might be Emma and followed the sound. That's when he saw something human-like in the snow. He shouted Emma's name, but when that figure turned around, Theo's soul froze because the figure's face was exactly like Theo's, the same face, but with black hollows under the eyes and skin peeling off its body as if someone had skinned it alive. Theo trembled with fear. Meanwhile, Jake, who was searching for Emma in a corridor inside the visitor center, saw his hands in the firelight, and he screamed loudly because there were deep bite marks on them. It looked as if some animal had attacked him. He screamed as soon as he saw those bite marks. Hearing his voice, a frightened Leah and Theo returned to the main hall. Before Theo and Jake could say anything, they saw Leah and they were horrified. It looked as if a worm, a bomb, had entered Leah's cheek and was crawling there. Leah suddenly started experiencing severe pain. As they approached Leah, that bomb suddenly started spreading under Leah's skin, and Leah's face turned completely black. They were all very scared and ran towards the door, but as soon as they opened it, Emma's dead body fell on them, and behind her stood a terrifying man wearing a mask. The three of them couldn't understand anything, but before they could do anything, the masked man pulled out an axe from behind his back and brutally killed all three of them.
But then, after a while, their eyes opened again, not in a hospital, but inside the same visitor center. Emma was also with them. All four were sitting near the same fireplace. None of them could understand what had just happened when they looked at the time. The clock showed 6:45 p.m., the same time after which it had all started. Without delay, they ran out of the visitor center. After reaching a short distance, they thought they were finally safe. But then the trees in the forest began to shake, and they saw a very large creature in front of them. Before the four of them could understand what was happening, the monster moved towards them and began to eat them. Screaming in pain, all four of them lost consciousness. But then, once again, all four of them opened their eyes in the same visitor center. The clock still showed 6:45 p.m. They realized that they were trapped in a time loop, and to find a way out of it, they began to search the building. In the meantime, they found a room where they saw photos of many missing people, including their own photo with a date 8 days in the future. On the wall of the same room, it was written, "If you want to live, you have to survive until dawn." Just then, someone hit one of them hard on the head with a baseball bat. When their eyes opened again, they were in the main hall of the same visitor center. It was still 6:45 p.m. Before they could understand anything, they would die in a new way. They kept trying to escape from that valley, but they couldn't survive until dawn. And then, 8 days later, news came that 4 people named Jake, Theo, Emma, and Leah were missing. These people couldn't get out of that visitor center alive. But will Clover and her friends be able to get out of here alive? Clover has come to the same visitor center while searching for her missing sister, Melanie. Will Clover and her friends survive until dawn in this valley? Will they be able to find Melanie? Or will they also become one of the missing legends of that valley? Third story. The brown suit. A man died, and his wife went to the funeral parlor to see her husband's corpse. When she saw him lying in the coffin in a blue suit, she started crying. The undertaker felt sorry for her and asked if there was anything he could do for her. The woman said that when her husband was alive, he always wore a brown suit. The undertaker had put the wrong suit on the corpse. The undertaker apologized to the woman and said he would rectify the mistake immediately. The woman sat down on the sofa in the waiting room while the undertaker went into the back room. A few minutes later, he came out and told her that he had finished. When she went into the back room, she saw that her husband was laid out peacefully in the coffin, wearing his favorite brown suit. "Now he looks just the way he did when he was alive," she said. "But how did you change it so quickly?" "It was no trouble," said the undertaker. "I accidentally put your husband sit on another corpse, so I just switched the heads." And that brings us to the end of tonight's chilling tale. Sweet dreams, or should we say, don't have them. If you enjoyed this descent into darkness, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to AI Horror Stories so you don't miss our next nightmare. Good night for now.